Babysitters of Redditors, what is funniest NSW scariest incident that happened when you babysit? When I was 16 I was babysitting my cousin's 4-year-old. He and I were briefly speaking on the phone, and when I got off the line, I could not find her anywhere. Needless to say, I lost my crap and freaked the frick out. I knew that her favorite game was hide and go seek, so I started wandering around the house and playfully saying, "Where is she? Is she in the kitchen?" Silence. "Is she in the bathroom?" Silence. "Is she in the closet?" And from the closet I hear, "No." Toddlers. Cute and terrifying. Babysat twin 9-year-old boys a few years ago. The parents didn't even leave the house. They just locked themselves upstairs while I played video games and made dinner for the kids. I had to keep making the games louder to cover up the sounds that were coming out of the bedroom. A mixture of pain and pleasure. Someone hacked the video baby monitor while I was nannying once. I put the kid down for a nap and went down to make myself lunch, with the monitor set up on the kitchen counter. I heard some small noises from it, but assumed it was him moving around in his sleep. Then the guy hacking into it started singing Rockabye Baby in this creepy childlike voice. I ran up to the kid's room thinking someone had broken in and freaked the frick out. Took me about 10 minutes to realize it was coming from the monitor. Guy kept singing as I was panicking. The butthole. And I unplugged that crap. The parents flipped when I told them and got the cops involved. A few days later they found out it was the neighbor. Some 30-something dude living in his parents' basement. Those things are notoriously insecure. When I was 21 I was a nanny for a 4-year-old girl. We had finished swimming at their country club and were in the locker room changing. As I was changing my top she looks at me and says my mom has those too. I asked her what does she have and she said breasts. I didn't say anything and just continued getting dressed. She paused for a second and then said except hers are really long. I had to bite my cheek to keep from laughing. My children, girls, call mine long mountains. Standing joke in our family now. Husband thinks it is hilarious. Babysat 6-year-old triplets. 2 boys, 1 girl. One of them was a very sweet autistic boy. When I went to check up on the other kids for a second, the other boy had gone up the stairs, took his diaper off, and smeared poop all over the walls. I went to go clean it up with diaper wipes and threw them in the toilet. I forgot that diaper wipes, these ones, aren't flushable. So lo and behold, I had crappy wipes overflowing out of the toilet bowl and half crappy stain walls. It was a crappy day. When I was young I babysat a few local kids. It was easy way to get cash and I was one of the oldest in the neighborhood. One of the kids had some kind of severe attachment issues. Once when I was using the bathroom he broke the door slamming into it. He wanted to be in the same room I was, no matter what. His mother said that wasn't the first time that has happened. It was the last time for me though. Never babysat that kid again. Currently babysit 9 and 12-year-old boys. They have a lot of energy. Actually they're just flat out nuts. And so there is constant roughhousing. One time, the 12-year-old got a little cut on his leg and started bleeding. I went to look at it, but he flinched and pushed me away. Then he proceeded to wipe the blood off of his leg, streak it under each eye, and hiss at me. The pay is good. How is this not the top voted comment? 10/10. I was babysitting a 2-year-old. He was playing on the couch pillows. Instead of a back cushion, my couch has a bunch of pillows. All of a sudden he started crying. He bumped his head on the corner of the couch, not sharp, and it started to profusely bleed. I grabbed him and sat him on the counter so I could see where it was coming from. Just under his eyebrow was gashed open. I cleaned it up as best as I could, gave him some children's Tylenol, and called his mom. They were able to glue it back together. I felt so bad. Oh, thank God you can glue children back together like toys. I let my parents babysit my daughters once. When we came home the kids were sitting close together in another part of the house. After my parents left it was explained to us that our 2-year-old spilled milk on the table and grandpa lost it. First and last time. Lots of older people have some seriously strange value of milk. My granddad used to freak out when people spilled it too, even though it's like 25 cents a glass. Had a babysitter when I was like 6 or 7 every few nights. She used to walk around in a thong, and one time I asked if I could see her boobs, so she showed them to me. Pretty sure if I was a rat bastard she could have gotten in huge trouble, but a pimp never snitches. Oh noodle face, you dog. When I was about 12 or so, I babysat a couple of brothers across the street from me. Their regular babysitter lived 2 doors down but couldn't make it, so I helped out. It ended up with me locking myself in the bedroom with the youngest brother, who was about 6 would be my guess, while the older brother tried to stab through the door with a huge butcher knife. That kid might have been 8 or so. That was definitely the last time I babysat for them. I told the other babysitter that he was on his own from now on. When I was 12, I babysat a 7-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. The boy went to the bathroom and then started screaming for me. So I go in and his pants are around his ankles with his head at his feet, bare butt facing the door, and he's holding his cheeks apart. His sister walks up behind me and says, "You're going to have to wipe his butt, he can't do it right." I wiped the kid's butt, and when the parents came home they were all, "Oh, we're so sorry, we forgot to tell you." My mom was kinda pee off and didn't make me babysit them anymore. That's perfectly normal child behavior. Maybe a little old at 5, but still normal. I still believe the kids I babysit are nightmares. You can tell me all you want that it is natural. I never poured water into my sibling's butthole. 7 years old, F, and 9 years old, M, take baths together. They like to touch butts together, quite literally. He will have her bend over so he can take his bath pail and pour water into her butthole. Unsuccessfully, of course. There was also a lot of spanking. When it was time to get out and get dry, she would push him on his stomach on the ground and sit on top of his butt and bounce up and down like she's riding an animal. Or her brother. No, I didn't let this happen. It only happened twice, and since then, they aren't allowed to take baths together. 7 years old, F, and 9 years old, M, take baths together. That is way too old to take baths together. 3 and 4, yes, otherwise, no. When I babysat my little brother a few years ago, someone tried to break into the apartment we lived in. I was about 13 back then and we were both scared shitless. I don't know why they gave up, but I like to think it was the stench of crap wafting from my pants out of the building. As a teenager, I used to babysit for my neighbors. I quickly discovered that their marriage was on the rocks when one of their daughters told me how daddy had been sleeping in a separate room. And the fact that mommy was coming home every time I was there with a different man. She would always tell me she would only be gone a few hours and would be home no later than midnight. I would end up falling asleep after the kids were put to bed and waking up at 4 AM to the sounds of her arriving home and ravaging some strange man on the front porch and then shooing him off. Her husband was a really nice man that worked his butt off doing night shifts as a nurse at the local hospital. And while he was working, she was screwing around. Naturally, I told my mom about it and she informed the husband because she didn't want her daughter being an accomplice in his wife's extramarital activities. They split not long after that and moved away. I was babysitting 2 brothers. One was maybe 7 and the other about 3. I should mention that the dad was a contractor and he had a lot of random construction things in the backyard. The 7-year-old picked up a dowel that was about 4 feet long and pretended to be a Jedi with a double-bladed lightsaber. He wound up smacking his brother in the face and the 3-year-old was flung across the patio. The air that kid got was pretty impressive and I laughed. Until I saw that the kid was actually hurt and then I felt kind of bad. The 3-year-old was a little crap and he had been torturing me and the older brother for the past hour though, so I didn't feel that bad. I once babysat these 2 kids a few times who lived around the corner from me who were probably 7 and 3. One day while I was on my way home from school to their house, I found them playing outside and the older girl ran up to me and said she wanted to tell me a secret about her new cat. She told me that when she squeezed its pee-pee that white stuff came out. I just kind of awkwardly said I'm okay and continued walking to their house. I never brought it up again, but it weirded me out for a while whenever I looked at her cat. I nanny for a couple of boys, so every day is an adventure. Once I walked into the basement where 2 of the boys and some of their friends were playing. As I rounded the corner, the youngest boy is standing in his underwear with an exercise ball over his head, shouting the opening lines of The Lion King. The other kids were sitting in a circle around him. I just left. The youngest is a ton of fun. but he picks up things from his older brothers, inappropriate things, which is to be expected. But whenever I hear him saying something like that, I make him explain it out loud to me. It's hilarious. Not my story but my GF's. I met her childhood babysitter a few weekends ago, and after the former babysitter was out of earshot, my GF casually mentioned her babysitter used to take her with her to go meet drug dealers to pick up drugs when she was like 9 years old. My first question was, how did she know what a drug deal looked like when she was 9 years old? And the weird part was that her babysitter was very open about explaining what they were doing, about what all the different kind of drugs were, what they were called, what the high for each was like, etc. I just kind of listened with my jaw dropped. I'm shocked my GF didn't turn out to be all kinds of fricked up. Or that she didn't tell her parents. The 6-year-old daughter of a friend slapped my butt and called me sweetie. Actually, I was kinda speechless, while my friend and his wife just laughed their asses off. For clarification, I wasn't really babysitting her but keeping her busy and entertained, so my friend and his wife could get a few hours of peace. Probably something your friend does to his wife. I'm sure it was twice as funny for them. Kooky neighbor lady had a 3-year-old daughter and 5-year-old son. My sister normally babysat them, but for whatever reason, I, 12 at the time, watched them for a couple hours once. I think we played with Lego, mostly, but I recall at some point the 3-year-old pointing to the crotch of my jeans and saying informatively, "That's your fanny." Then the 5-year-old stood up and asked, "Do you want to see me jump up and down until caca comes out my pants leg?" I had no idea what the heck he was talking about since we called it poop in my house. So I just said, "Number." Then he said, "I have to go to the bathroom," to which I replied, "Well, go to the bathroom then," and he left and did his business appropriately. That part was weird later when I figured out what the heck he was talking about. I presume the caca out the pants leg question got a great reaction from his mom, and when it didn't from me he gave up on it. I babysat for a lady whose husband was in the army with my dad. Her husband was deployed and 2 of her 4 kids were at a friend's house. I was watching the younger 2, a boy 3 and a girl 6. Everything was going swimmingly until the boy started to have an asthma attack. His mother hated their house, which they had moved into about 2 months prior, and nothing was really unpacked. So this child is having an asthma attack and pukes all over himself, and I didn't know where his inhaler or his clothes were. I called my dad, a medic, and he came and helped me out until the lady came home at like 3 AM. I think she went to a concert or something. IDR. I mean, she paid me well, but I thought the kid was gonna die. I was babysitting for 2 young girls, maybe 5 and 7 at the time, and they chased me into a corner under the pretense of tag, then asked if they could see my breasts. No whoop. A 9-year boy pulled his dad's gun out from under the bed and pointed it at me. He swore it wasn't loaded, but I nearly crapped myself anyway. I never went back and hated walking past that house. Just about a month ago, I was babysitting my 4-year-old nephew. He still hasn't gotten the hang of pulling up his pants when he's done going to the bathroom, so someone usually helps him. Well, he went to the bathroom and as he came out, still had his pants down and starts singing rock and roll wee wee while whipping around his wee with his hands and dancing. It was the funniest thing I have ever seen a kid do to this day. I babysat for just about every kid in my neighborhood when I was growing up. My favorite memory of that was when I had to look after a couple of boys, 9 and 11 maybe, and their little sister, 1 or 2. It was always a bit of a chore getting the kids to go to bed, but I figured out a trip one time. They were running around the house and when they weren't looking I blew a raspberry on my arm and that made a big fart type sound. They both looked at me with huge eyes and clearly had never seen that trick before. So I turned around so they couldn't see and did it again to show it was a trick, not a fart. I promised them I would show them the trick if they promised not to give me any trouble getting to bed. They did, and so as they were tucked and I showed them the trick. I tell you, that is the best use for fart noises ever. There's nothing like bribing kids by teaching them new ways to annoy their mom. Mwahahaha. I used to watch these 2 boys, one was 8 and the other 10. It was New Year's Y2K and they were freaking out about the world coming to an end. We got permission from their parents to stay up to watch the ball drop. Once that happened, we decided to go play in the snow to celebrate. Well, the 10-year-old had been a real dickhead all night and thought it was a good idea to sling a piece of ice at me. Well, hit me right between the eyes and knocked my butt out. I woke up, probably a couple seconds later, to see the 8-year-old lunge at the 10-year-old like a linebacker and knock this kid out. He's on top of him screaming, "You killed her, you butthole. She's dead." Somehow I had to try to get this little kid off his big brother without laughing or passing back out. I guess $40 was worth it. I babysat these 3 kids one time. 2 boys and a little girl. First night, these kids are angels. I'm all like, well, that was easy. Second night, Lord frickaduck, it was horrible. The boys decide they are not going to bed. I take their DVD player away and it turns into the oldest, 7, screaming, smacking a cup of water off the kitchen table, goes to throw his mom's laptop to the floor. Finally I get him back into his room and then he starts climbing out his bedroom window screaming at the top of his lungs, "My mommy is gonna kill me," because I was trying to get a hold of his mother. Because I was not putting up with that crap. Needless to say, I quit that night. Worst kids I've ever babysat. Whenever I babysat my cousin's kids, I brought over a Dragon Ball Z game that they liked playing at my house, and they lost their crap like they'd just won the lottery. My cousin and I were highly amused. I'm 26, and if you came over to my house and brought a DBZ game, I'd lose my crap too. I was babysitting this kid and he takes me to the computer to show me his cool computer game. Turns out it was a free demo disc of a flight simulator game, and it just looped through a 3-minute video of the game. And the kid had no idea he wasn't actually controlling the plane at all. Haha, dumb kid. They also had a really old, skeletal black cat that I didn't even know existed until the kids had gone to bed and I was alone in their creepy family room, and out comes this cat out of nowhere looking like death. I used to do that at the arcade with the demo videos that looped. I knew it was actually playing, but my mom wouldn't buy any tokens, but she still took me for playdates with other kids who did have tokens anyway. Last summer I babysat for my mom's friend from work. She had 2 boys. The youngest, about 10, chased me around the house with skeletons from his collection of dead animals because I wouldn't play with them. Side note, he said he found the animals already dead and cleaned the bones. I don't believe that he found them. I'm attempting to change a 3-year-old's diaper, but she is running around the house, trying to get away from me. In the meantime, her sisters are yelling at each other and fighting, so I take a break from the 3-year-old and go break up the fight. When I get back to the youngest, she is standing down the hall from me, diaper off. She looks at me, giggles, yells I'm pooping, and runs down the hall, leaving a trail of poop. I will never have children. It's been a whole hour now, and still no posting of a pervy dad with babysitter action. I don't know if I should feel relieved or just put the lotion and tissues away. One time the 4-year-old girl I was watching pulled me over to the hall closet, pointed to the crawl space and started crying. I kept asking her what was wrong and she said, "Clara and Jenny are trapped down there. It's really cold and they've been there a long time. They want out." Needless to say, I closed the door and never went into that closet again. I was referred to this family by a friend, so it's my first time there and the mom is giving me a rundown of things and showing me where everything is and all the jazz. Then she tells me that her youngest, who was a first grader at the time, has this problem where poop or whatever leaks out of his butt, and that if I see him run away into his bedroom that it's okay because he is just changing his undies. I didn't take her seriously until I saw that kid run in his room about 6+ times during the 4 hours I was there. This poor kid smelled like poop and the parents didn't really do anything about it. Oh, and he was the pickiest freaking eater ever. I babysat there once more and then called it quits because I couldn't stand the smell of her kid and the attitudes of both kids combined. I've been babysitting for over 10 years now and mostly the kids are pretty good, except for one. He was a nightmare, a case of the mom and the dad not being together and having different rules in different houses, so the kid not really knowing right from wrong. Also lived with his grandparents and the mother, so if mom said no, grandma or grandpa would say yes. Ugh. So anyway, the kid literally didn't know the word no. That's a nightmare in itself. He loved to play pirates, which in his mind was just beating the crap out of you with anything shaped like a sword, which in this case was a golf club. Ouch. Lastly, he was potty training. which I'm actually pretty good at, but he was so not ready to be potty trained. So he would be like, I has to go potty, so I'd walk him to the bathroom, he'd pee, wash his hands, with lots of convincing, and then run into the living room and crap on the floor. He thought it was hilarious. Me, not so much. This also wasn't a one-time thing. That was quite the summer. Child abandonment. I was 16 living in a foster home due to getting knocked up and thrown out of my house. Foster mother's friend had 5 kids and needed a sitter one night. I agreed to watch the kids for a few hours and she was supposed to be home by 8:30. At 10 that night I put the kids to bed after speaking with my FM and settled in hoping she would return. The next morning I got the older kids off to the bus stop for school and then my FM picked me and the younger 2 kids up. She took me to school and the younger kids to the police station. The days later she came pounding on the door demanding to know where her kids were. She became very agitated when we told her she needed to go to the police station to find her kids. Never saw her or the kids again. Still don't even know where the heck she was for those 4 days. Was wrestling with the 3-year-old I nannied. Wrestling consisted of me sitting on the floor while he ran at me. He'd put his hands out when he crashed into me, which led to the question, "What's in your shirt?" I just told him that's a part of me but let mom know, and she later explained boobs to him and that only girls have boobs. Fast forward a week or so and we're wrestling again, but this time, Grandpa, a pretty hefty guy, was in the room with us. 3-year-old, with a confused face, looks back and forth between me and Grandpa, then asks, "Grandpa has boobs?" I was babysitting a 1st or 2nd grade boy and was told by the parents to make sure he takes a bath. So he is taking his bath and I come in and tell him it's time for bed and it's time to get out of the tub. That's where he bolts out of the tub, bathroom, and house. So there I am chasing a naked little boy down the street trying to catch him with a towel. Was supposed to be babysitting my younger cousin, who was about 8 years old at the time. Just made her lunch, so I went upstairs to relax for a little bit. Come downstairs not even 20 minutes later to see her trying to use knives to cut her cast off her arm. Got a call from my seriously beloved brother a couple weeks ago at 5:47 AM. Sis, me and girlfriend were partying, doing coke, and I think we did too much. I called an ambulance for her, and I am freaking out. My husband and I hopped up out of bed, sort of assembled ourselves, and were at their apartment in under 20 minutes. I watched my shamefaced brother and his humiliated girlfriend be carted off on stretchers and proceeded to care for their 4 children, 3 hers, 1 his, for the next 5 hours while they were evaluated in the FSC overdoses. 3 of the 4 were old enough to wonder where their parents were. I told them that their mom and my brother had gotten sick in the middle of the night and had to go to the doctor, so we were there to have fun until it was time to pick up their parents. Thank frick they were young enough to buy it. My brother has expressed incredible gratitude and a desire to never touch sea again. Fewer words have made me happier, if they hold true. I babysat a 5-year-old girl and 1.5-year-old boy when I was about 15. I had to change the boy's diaper before bedtime and I clearly had no idea what I was doing. The girl proceeds to find one of her baby dolls and a little baby doll diaper and showed me how to do it. Slightly embarrassing. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.